It's playoff time, but fantasy is not over, not even in the slightest bit. Welcome to the Patreon exclusive free episode. That's right. Everyone gets the whole episode today. If you are interested in joining us at patreon.com/Broto Fantasy to talk football with the greatest community ever, plus get so many extras. I can't even imagine. I can't even say it. You got to go to patreon.com/Broto Fantasy and check out all the extras you can get. And on top of that, it's the playoff challenge. You can get $5 off your FFPC Playoff Challenge entry. We're going to tell you all about it, and we're going to tell you about the Fantasy Football by Broto app. Download that to get the link to the entry and to get every single stat you need. And then on top of that, patreon.com/Broto Fantasy. We've got Black Monday. We've got the playoff challenge. I mean, it's like we never left. Fantasy Football by Broto app presents the Broto Fantasy Football Podcast right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Broto Fantasy Football Podcast presented by BrotoFantasy.com and the Fantasy Football by Broto app, the only tool you need to dominate fantasy football. So, I mean, usually this is us talking... not us. This is the industry talking playoffs, but we are here to continue talking fantasy football. That's right. It is me, and it is the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who in the most unpredictable year predictably dominated the shit out of his leagues. Michael, what's good, Mike?
What's up, brother? Yeah, good year for me in ye old fantasy football.
Bro, I gotta say, like, my fantasy numbers would look so much better if I wasn't in every league with you and Jason. It's really like I think yours and yours would look better if you weren't in leagues with me, and Jason's would look better if he wasn't in leagues with us. We got to start branching out and playing against other people and just dominating them. I think that's what we got to do.
Yeah, we do play in a lot of leagues together. I beat Tim in the Tingle Championship.
Oh my God! Don't get me
shout out to the patrons who won the patron leagues, the Beat the Bros leagues, won the Unlimited League. Big shout out to those guys. They're all getting a nice Broto belt, courtesy of Party Belts.
Yeah, don't forget to go to Party Belts. Is it partybelts.com? I can't remember the exact address, but if you Google Party Belts, it'll come up right away. And go there and get anything that you need, because you got these other places. Yeah, it's partybelts.com, and you got these other places, right? And it's just like they do too much. Like I'm look, not to say if you want a big belt, that's on you. But for me, I'm 35. I got 2 kids. What am I going to do with a $200 belt? Like, what am I going to do with that? No, go to partybelts.com, get a great looking belt, a customizable belt, and you can use it at all times. Shout out to Nolan. He's a big part of the Broto Discord as well.
It also has beer holders on the side, which is great.
What else do you need? Michael, before we get started, man, I got to tell you a little update about my life. I have started, because you said beer, I'm not drinking or doing any other extracurricular activities that I enjoy doing, or eating any processed food or seed oils, or dairy or gluten or grains until May 5th. And no sugar. No sugar.
Until May 5th, Tim is eating... let me think of absolutely nothing that he can eat.
Vegetables, and sweet potatoes. Literally meat, vegetables, and sweet potatoes. I'm having a little Gary. I'm having clarified butter called ghee, but that's kind of like a loophole in the system.
Yeah, you just put every time you cook, you just put 1 ghee unit up in there.
I didn't want to laugh at that. I really didn't want to laugh at that. Yeah. So if anyone wants to join me on that journey, that's another thing that we could do in the Discord. Let me know if you guys are listening in Patreon. And the patrons, I know Justin, one of our patrons. Shout out to Justin, a long-time listener,
Wash.
And someone who I can truly call a friend. Like, we've never actually met in person, which is for me, I never thought I'd be someone who'd have an online friend, but I have a few of them, and Justin's one of them. And yeah, we talk about life and things, and there was a time where we support each other. He's going through a fitness journey of his own where he's almost completely turned his body around. Like, he's really doing his thing. So shout out to Justin. And if anyone else, Yeah, he definitely, and it wasn't always like that. Justin had his struggles with weight and up and down and up and down, and now he's hitting it, and he's really turned his whole fitness journey into something that's very very inspirational. So if you want to join me and Justin and some other people, Michael's also. I saw Michael earlier today when I went to pick up the keys to the studio. You're looking slim, kid.
I've been back on the grind, eating healthy, working out.
Yeah,
Trying to lose. Actually, me, Jason, and our ladies booked a trip to Miami during their break, since my fiance and Jason's girlfriend both work in the DOE, teacher and speech pathologist, so they have off winter break. So we booked a little trip to Miami for a few days. So gotta get that beach bod before then.
You're going to Miami. Yeah, me and Jason have been waking up at 5. I wake up at 5:15 in the morning. I go to Jason's apartment. He has a gym. We go and hit the gym. I walk to work. I'm averaging 20,000 steps a day.
Not too
20,000 steps a day, bro. My legs are tired, man.
A mile is around like what, 600 steps or something? How many steps is in a mile?
I'm not sure, but like the guideline is everyone should be taking 10,000 steps a day. So I'm doubling that, so I'm feeling good about myself. But anyway, some guys that are not feeling good about themselves. Oh,
1,000 steps about. So it's about 10 miles you'd be walking. Not too shabby.
2,000 steps? Is that what you said?
Roughly, depending. Obviously, it changes on the person and
Yeah.
like your stride is and such, but roughly
I'm
2,000 steps.
I'm 5'9.5". I'm like the average size of a guy, so I would say
You have an average stride. You don't do splits while you walk.
No, and I also don't like waddle. Although when I first met my girlfriend, she told me, well, my wife now, she told me that I used to like have a terrible gait.
You do walk slow though.
No, guys, you don't. I've been getting this I walk slow shit for so long, but they don't understand first of all, Michael and Jason, ever since they're young kids, they just don't walk with people. They would walk ahead of, like, our family would be walking down the street to a restaurant or a movie or something, and they would be down the block. Like, that was just them. And secondly, when I'm not in a rush, I don't rush. All right? But when I'm in the city or when I'm like walking down the street, I'm getting mad at people because I'm like, you need to speed up. All right? So enough with this nonsense. Then you got Johnny doesn't even stop when there's green lights. He's just like walking straight into traffic like he's fucking Frogger.
Wow,
boy. Blaming me. Anyway, so me, Michael, and Jason, if you're sticking around for the second half, and the second half is free. I mentioned it in the beginning. We're not making it Patreon exclusive today. We're going to put the whole thing on YouTube. We're going to put the whole thing for free. We haven't done a Patreon free episode all year. Shout out to our patrons who have been supporting. We appreciate you. But, come join. Because I'll tell you what, the way you win fantasy championships, anyone could pay attention during the year. If you pay attention during the offseason, you put yourself in a great position. The people who had Kyron Williams this year, if they would have been paying attention in the offseason, they would have known that, hey, Sean McVay, he's looking at Kyron Williams. Is it, it's a situation where the backfield can't, you would have known. And that's just one of the things. Anyway, we're 8 minutes and 33 minutes into this podcast, Michael. So let's get it started. Let's get started with boom, 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 Black Monday. I'm trying to find like some sound effects here, but this definitely is not where it's black. No, how about this one? Black Monday, the day where NFL coaches get fired. Some surprises, some not so surprising.
Goodbye
to the coaches. It's the NFL, so I'm sure you're gonna get another job, 'cause that's how it goes. It's a cycle that goes on.
Adam Gase.
Adam Gase. Sorry.
Is that from GarageBand? Like, where are you pulling that up from?
No, it says it's got a option here. It says background music. That was called Night Driving.
On StreamYard, they got
yeah, because they have the and then we have ours who we have our.
Is it like if you're doing like a stream or something? Like, I need to use the bathroom. Hold on, and just play some background music.
Yeah, I guess so. Or could to do that. Don't forget we have also our awards that we're gonna do after the whole season is over, and we still have the drops here that are just hilarious drops, like the rookie of the year
Key to
drop.
being a big league pitcher is the 3 R's: readiness, recuperation, and conditioning.
Amazing. Rookie of the year. All right. So anyway, let's get into it. The first coaching change. I want to start with Arthur Smith because fuck that guy. But I'm not. We got to start with the big news. The big man, the second winningest coach in the history of the world. Bill Belichick parting ways today. That news broke today. With the Patriots, they say it was a mutual decision, but if you read the tea leaves, Bill Belichick said he wanted the job. Robert Kraft they met and they said it's mutual. They split a press conference, which is weird. You would expect that the press conference would just be Bill Belichick's after 24 years, but no. Robert Kraft, who does not own Kraft cheese, um, as I was
Yeah.
giving very
Shit on
fake
him
news
for years
for
because of that.
years. Fake news for years. Like, because I hated him even more than I already do. I'm a Jets fan, if you didn't know, because he sold plastic cheese to people, but he doesn't at all. But yeah, he was there, so it's a little rifty. You know what I mean? There's a little
James
rift.
L. Kraft, Canadian American businessman.
Fuck,
Canadian, eh?
fuck that guy. Oh no, wait, is that which Kraft? Which Robert Kraft, or is that the guy who owns Kraft?
James L. Kraft,
Owns
the
Kraft cheese.
wholesale cheese delivery company in 1903, Kraft Foods.
Well, he actually sold cheese. The conglomerate since then.
In 1988, yeah, it was purchased by Philip Morris for $11.9 billion. Holy
Bro,
moly.
Philip Morris owns it. Do you know what Philip Morris is?
I can't tell if you're being serious or not.
No, I'm being serious. You know what Philip Morris is?
Of course not.
Google it.
I'm doing it right now. My
That's a
computer's
cigarette
passing out.
company, bro.
Is it really?
That is a cigarette company.
Do you hear
And
me right now?
I hear you, but you're frozen.
Yeah, my computer's like completely frozen, but as long as you hear me.
I can hear you. It's not the most attractive picture that you've been keyed in on. I'm not
I
gonna
can't
lie.
even see it. I'm stuck on a half Google of Philip Morris.
Michael, generally an attractive guy. I will say that. All right, Michael, while you figure that out, let's talk about Bill Belichick. Obviously leaves a very lasting legacy in New England. Interestingly enough, you're back.
I'm
He
back.
was fired, but the two leading candidates for his job are his former linebackers, Jared Mayo and Mike Vrabel. So the question is, do you think this is a good move by the Patriots? Do you think this is a move that they needed to do? Do you think Belichick lands on his feet somewhere else? And your overall thoughts on the move?
Yeah, the times they are changing. No more Bill Belichick in New England. It was kind of known that this might be the year that happens. Um, it makes sense. Bill Belichick is how old, dude? Like 75 or something at this
No,
point.
he's about to turn 70.
All right, yeah, he's about to turn 70, and you think he wants to keep coaching Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones and pulling his hair out every week? The Patriots need to reset from top to bottom. Um, so yeah, I don't blame him for wanting to leave. I don't blame the Patriots for saying, all right, it's time to move on. Let's try to bring in a new culture. The Bill Belichick era is done. I think it makes sense from both sides. Just time to move on. It's no longer the Tom Brady days where you could just pencil in the Patriots as division champions every year.
Do you know what the craziest part is? He's been the head coach for 24 years for the Patriots, and he got hired in the year 2000. When I hear 24 years ago, it's just like, oh, he got hired in 1997. Or like, I mean, that's not 1993. Oh, no. Oh, 1990, maybe 89. No, it was 2000. Why am I so old? All right. So let's get all right. So Bill Belichick obviously moving on. Shout out to Bill Belichick for making my childhood terrible. But one of my favorite memories will always be when the Jets beat him in the 2011 playoffs, I believe, or
That
2010.
was glorious.
That was glorious. I was at a cabin with my ex-girlfriend Maria, which I don't know if I'm just into Marias, but my current wife's name is Maria. So, but my ex-girlfriend Maria at the time and her friends, and me and this one kid George stayed back and we watched it, and it was one of the greatest experiences ever. While everyone else went to the gun range and shot some guns.
Remember the Jets got absolutely dominated by the Patriots in the regular season.
Demolished by like 40.
Yeah.
But you know what? That
Times.
gave me confidence.
Is that the last time the fucking Jets made the playoffs? Fuck that team. For
It
crying out
was.
loud.
Yeah, it was.
I say fuck that team just for today. Tomorrow I'm back into being a Jets fan, hyped for Aaron Rodgers in the 2024 season.
Michael, how old are you? 28?
28, yeah.
So,
No major championships in my lifetime.
yeah, I mean, me neither. I'm 35 and I have no major championships either. But you are really a dedicated Jets fan because at least I was like, well, 2011, I was like 20, what? How many years is that? 13? I was 22 years old. So, like, I got to experience some good Jets years. Like, you know, if for me, the Jets were like the Mets, where they weren't like dominant, but like every 4 years they would make the playoffs and they would put together a good team and they'd make a run. But for you, when's the last time they made the playoffs? How
It's
old were you?
been-
You were like 13 or
I was
15.
I was like 15 or something.
Oh, God, that's
Yeah.
horrible.
Ridiculous.
That's horrible.
I know. Like, I want to experience it as an adult. I get shook just watching these games of the teams that I don't have a fan like interest in. If it's the Jets, I'd be, or like even like the Mets, if they make it to the World Series, like they did make it to the World Series that year against the Royals.
Yeah.
And it was just so nervous. I quit my job.
Michael quit his job that year.
Yeah.
He was like, I am working a night shift when the Mets are in the World Series. No, you weren't even working. You were just like, I don't even want to take the chance that I might be working.
Yeah, I was working at Domino's during my college for like a year to make some extra money, college.
Make some extra dough.
Yeah, ayo. And then I was like, yeah, I got another job. I have to start tomorrow. I can't come back. It's like I'm not missing a World Series game.
Excellent. Hey, paid off. I don't think you were climbing up the Domino's corporate ladder anytime soon.
It wasn't the plan.
No. All right. So let's get into the other firings. Let's start at this top, and then we'll go. The Atlanta Falcons wasted no time firing Arthur Smith, even though their owner, Arthur Blank, made it seem like Arthur Smith was the greatest guy. The writing was on the wall. I saw something on ESPN that said something very, very poignant. They said, imagine if the 2016 Golden State Warriors decided to run their offense through Festus of Ezeli instead of the Splash Brothers. And I feel like that's what Arthur Smith was doing with the Falcons. It's going to be interesting to see what the Falcons do. I think Bill Belichick is probably going to be on their radar. I also think that they might be going for some sort of young hire, Ben Johnson type offensive mind. So we'll see what happens with the Falcons. I know I'm excited about this. I think that the Falcons need to be unleashed. I wouldn't be surprised. Like if I was saying some hot takes, and I think next episode or the episode after that, we're going to have some hot takes about the season. I think Justin Fields is the starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons at this point next year. So maybe they go with a Greg Roman type, and like combo, something like that. How are you feeling about this move? And overall, do you think it's a good move for the Falcons like I do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you could think otherwise. I think it's just known among the world at this point that Arthur Smith is not a good NFL head football coach. I don't care that he was going 500. People say that. Like, I mean, he's getting them to 8-9 wins as if that's a good thing. Oh, he's getting them to barely missing the playoffs. Like,
I mean, he's 21 and 30. That's not going to do it.
Yeah, nobody wants that. Nobody should be aspiring to be a 8-9 win coach. You want to win 10, 11 plus games and make the playoffs Mike Tomlin style. But yeah, obviously it's great for everyone that Arthur Smith is gone. Next year we're going to see, like, there's no more excuses. If Kyle Pitts sucks again in year 4, I don't want to hear about Kyle Pitts being the tight end 1 in Dynasty and a top 5 tight end in redraft the year after.
Bro, I'm reading this because I have the ESPN article up so that I could see all the coaches that got fired. This says pros of the Atlanta job, but it mentions they have a really good roster around the quarterback. They have $40 million in cap space, all great. And there's like cons of the Atlanta job. They don't have a quarterback. They need some defensive line help. And depending on what you're looking for, having the team's facility an hour north of the city could be a detractor. What? The hell are you talking about? All right, let's go to the second one. Watching the
I want to
command.
go clubbing tonight. I don't want to drive an hour.
Yeah, especially when I'm the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Washington Commanders, Ron Rivera fired. I think this one was writing on the wall ever since the ownership got dismantled, ever since he decided he was going to go with Sam Howell, which ended up being a bad decision. I know Ron Rivera is kind of like that, just mid. He's like the definition of a mid coach. He kind of like sticks to his guns and it never works out. He was 26-40, 26-40-1. I mean, it's an entire rebuild. So whoever joining Washington is going to be in it for the long haul. It's going to be like Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch type 6-year deal, probably. With that being said, who do you think, like, if you're a head coaching candidate, are you looking at the Washington Commanders? Should the Commanders kind of look in-house and maybe go Eric Bieniemy, who did do something good with that offense this year? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I mean, Eric Bieniemy would make sense, but he also had a great season as the OC, so I don't even know if that's part of the discussion. It's just just talking right now. But yeah, I always find it funny when people are like, who's gonna want to go to Washington and take over that Washington head coaching job? When it's like, who wants to accept millions of dollars to have a highly sought for job that only 30 people in the world have? Anyone who's in that industry, the coaching industry, is going to want to take that job, period.
There's only one job that I would say if I'm a head coach, if I'm an offensive coordinator and my job is to be a head coach, I'm like, I'm going to have to think about whether I want this job or not. It's the Panthers, because they have a shitty roster. They got rid of all their draft picks. Their quarterback doesn't look like the real deal. And their coach is an asshole. Like, just to put it kindly, their coach is a dick. So, like, do you want to be in that situation? I don't think so. I
The
think that's the
owner
only
is a
one.
dick, you mean?
The owner. What'd I say?
The coach.
Oh, yeah, you would be the coach. Yeah, he's just a asshole. Just an asshole. Can you imagine Bill Belichick with the Chargers? That would be a great fit. Especially
You think Bill Belichick's going somewhere else?
Yes. I mean, he's like 20-something wins away from the all-time record. Like, he wants that. He definitely wants that. Speaking of guys who are
Didn't Nick
connected.
Saban just retire? Maybe
He
they
did.
maybe they team up again.
Oh,
Nick Saban comes back to the NFL.
now you're talking spicy. If you want to make the oldest trio in the world, Pete Carroll also moving on from the Seattle Seahawks. This is
That was
another
a little
one.
shocking.
Yeah, there's another one that was also told as, mutual. 137 and 89 over 14 seasons. One really bad play call away from being back-to-back champions in the heyday. Obviously, they couldn't get over the hump. I think it's a lot. Pete Carroll is a defensive coach. He's 72. This might be a situation where the ownership and the GM were like, look, this guy loves Geno Smith. We don't see Geno Smith as a guy who can win a Super Bowl. This guy is supposed to be a defensive-minded coach. We haven't had a good defense for like 7 years. So, I get it. But Pete Carroll's another guy who I don't see him just walking into the sunset. I'm feeling like he's going to try and get a position somewhere else.
Well, apparently he's gonna take over an advisor role or something.
We'll
see how that goes. Yeah.
We'll see. So yeah, Pete Carroll fired. The Seattle Seahawks have to be one of the more attractive jobs in the NFL, considering that's a really solid franchise. And, they have a history of winning. They have a pretty decent roster around the quarterback. I think that's a job that is the opposite of the Panthers. If you get a chance to take the Seahawks job, which a lot of people have already mentioned, that Dan Quinn, who's currently the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys and the former defensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks in the Legion of Boom days, has been associated with this. It could be a Dan Quinn hiring. It makes a lot of sense if Dan Quinn goes back to Seattle. So I think that's probably where they're leaning there. We'll see what happens. The Tennessee Titans also let go of Coach Mike Vrabel, which is another one that kind of came out of the blue. But until you hear the reporting around it, it seems as though Mike Vrabel may or may not have cursed out the owner. They had a really bad relationship, according to sources. So I think this is one of those things where, even though he's been good, he's another guy who kind of sticks to his guns to the point where it costs them. And I think this year was definitely one of those moments where it cost them, Mike Vrabel sticking to his guns, especially because you could have moved Derrick Henry for a 3rd-round pick, and you could have done something, but you kind of stayed thick-headed. And Mike Vrabel's a thick-headed guy, but now he's free to go anywhere, and the New England job is open. Could be a great fit.
Yeah, I mean it would make logical sense. Mike Vrabel, is he in the Hall of Fame?
No.
No, but a very good player for the Patriots his entire career. But I mean, Gerard Mayo used to play for the Patriots too, and he's already has his foot in the door. So I feel like he'd be more likely. He is apparently the favorite as of now.
I mean, all right, so here are the jobs that are open, Michael. The Raiders job is technically open. Raiders, Panthers, Chargers, Falcons, Commanders, Titans, Seahawks, Patriots. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 positions open. What is the
Chargers.
most? I said Chargers.
I'm
What are the?
Chargers is where I would want to go.
There you go. Yeah, 100%. Like the Chargers is definitely
You
where
have
you would
Justin
be.
Herbert. You work from around the quarterback. All the other places are, let's try to figure out the QB situation and go from there. The Chargers are, okay, we have Justin Herbert. Let's go from there.
I think it also should be noted that there are some coordinator firings that could make a big deal. The Jaguars fire their defensive coordinator, Mike Caldwell. The Bears fire their offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy. And the Giants got rid of their defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, who this is another one that – did you hear the story behind this one, Michael?
Apparently, he just left the building because he got in an argument with Brian Dable or something.
So
Brian Dable let go of his friends.
Yes.
So
So Brian Dable was like these two guys, so apparently they were kind of like skirting the system. The way that it was put in the thing is they were creating their own fiefdom. Do you know what a fiefdom is?
Nope.
It's like their own little kingdom. It's like it's a term from the feudalism
From the
days.
Fife days.
From the feudalism days.
The days of Fife.
Yeah, those are actually days. I'm a history teacher, Michael. The days of Fife. That's not funny because it's a real thing. But yeah, their own kind of like thing where they wouldn't even talk to Dable about things and they would kind of ignore him, and they created their own hierarchy. So he fired the other two guys, and then Wink Martindale went in there and cursed them out, and then left. And not only left the building, went to Miami, just bounced to Florida, and didn't say nothing. He just bounced to Florida, and he's like, "Fuck these guys." So. Yeah, Wink Martindale, one of the better defensive coaches in the league, though. All right, let's get to some of the injury news for the upcoming weeks, because there are some big injury news, injury pieces of advice here. Kareem Hunt removed from the injury report, so he will play in the Texans if that matters. Also removed from the injury report, Amari Cooper. Someone added to the injury report was cornerback Denzel Ward, and it's very, very important to note that the Browns defense was very, very, very different without Denzel Ward. It's a lot like the Jets used to be when Darrelle Revis was there. It's a lot like the Rams used to be when Jalen Ramsey was there. When those guys go down, you lose the ability to play man so effectively, and that really hampers your pass rush. So how do you feel about this? The Texans, are playing the Cleveland Browns here. How are you feeling if you are, talking about this game, and what kind of effects do you think it has?
I mean, I feel like we're gonna talk about this during a playoff challenge part. I don't want to give too much away here.
Okay. Sam Laporta did not practice Thursday. It looks like Sam Laporta is not going to play. That is a big injury. He's been a fantastic, phenomenal find for them. Talk about like just breaking the mold. He's been the best rookie tight end of the modern era. Yeah. Aaron Jones limited in Thursday's practice with a knee and a finger injury. I'd be surprised if he doesn't suit up. Najee Harris, full participant in Thursday's practice. He's coming off a monster game in his last game. Apparently, Stephon Diggs insinuated that Gabe Davis would miss Sunday's game against the Steelers. He said the team is, quote, is trying to, quote, win for Gabe Davis so that he has something to play for when he comes back. He sprained his PCL in week 18. So out of those guys, any thoughts on those matters?
I don't want to get into it again.
Okay.
I feel like
Well,
we get this. Now that we're doing it, I feel like we could discuss this when we get to the teams.
all right, let me just go. Let me just run through the. Let me just run through the news so you guys are educated in what we're doing. Devontae Smith full practice. Baker Mayfield, who was definitely hobbled, did not practice on Thursday. It would be a shock if he didn't play in the game, but something to look out for because their backup QB situation is not good. AJ Dillon did not practice, so we're gonna have to keep an eye on that. Christian Watson limited in practice. Raheem Mostert listed as questionable. Xavier Howard, the cornerback, ruled out for against the Chiefs. Yeah, and that's what I got in terms of injury report. So now that we're done with that, let's get into the juice, Michael. This is the FFPC Playoff Challenge. Michael, since Michael is the FFPC guy, if you guys don't know, Michael actually works for the FFPC, which is the high stakes fantasy league, where high stakes player playing high stakes tournaments for a lot of money. So Michael, one of the reasons why he's so good at this is because not only is he an expert, he lives, breathes like fantasy football is his. That's what he does. So I mean, it's no excuse to be this good, honestly. But he knows his shit, is what I'm trying to say. So Michael, tell the people about this playoff challenge, what it entails, and how we're gonna approach it.
Yeah. So the playoff challenge is very simple, which is a good thing for people who are giving it a shot for the first time. You literally choose players. There's no what is it called? There's no why am I blanking on the
Salary.
word? No salary. Yeah, no salary cap and no crazy lineups where you could stack because you only choose one player per team. So the way it goes is you have a QB, two running backs, two wide receivers, one tight end, four flex, a kicker, and a defense for 12 roster spots. That means you could only choose one player per team. There are 14 teams in the NFL playoffs. That means you have to completely fade two teams. So two teams that you think are going to lose outright no matter what in their first game that you don't think are going to put up big fantasy performances. You fade two teams completely, and then the optimal way to do it. You're not completely out of it if your kicker or defense moves on, as we've seen in the past, looking at past champions, but it does put you in quite a hole. You want to, yeah, let's call it semi-fade the kicker and defense. You want to pick a kicker and defense that you think could put up some points, but are also going to be on the losing teams. So you want to select 10 stalwart players on teams that you think are going to win or can win or are going to put up big performances, and then fade two teams completely and semi-fade two teams. And the FFPC is tight end premium, so 1.5 points per reception compared to full PPR for every other position. Flex players can be tight ends as well, getting 1.5 PPR, which mixes things up a bit as well. But yeah, there's a $200 playoff challenge with a $500,000 grand prize, and there's a $35 playoff challenge with a $100,000 grand prize. If you download the Fantasy Football by Broto app, we have a little FFPC icon on the home page. Click it, and if you sign up as a new user, you'll get $5 off your first purchase. So the $35 league will be a $30 league, and you could have some fun watching the NFL playoffs. And one big thing as well, the Super Bowl is double the points. So another fun little twist.
All right, Mike. Let's get into it. Me and Michael are going head to head, and we're also we got Jason's as well. Jason's lineup. And so the way we're going to do this is that the winner is going to be treated to a sushi dinner by the two losers. Yeah. All right. So we'll send the picture to the Discord as well.
Or maybe a lunch special. We'll see.
Yeah, most likely a lunch special because Michael and Jason, I don't want to call them cheap because they're not, but they're
because you can't ever do
frugal.
Dinners.
I mean that too, but you're also frugal. You're just
not
a frugal
when it comes
guy.
to food.
You're.
I like to spend money on food.
Michael, should I tell the bagel story? Is that you or Jason?
That's Jason.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Jason definitely the more frugal of the two twins. So
we did just purchase tickets to Miami, so we spend money when we want to.
Yeah, you purchased tickets to Miami, but you want to tell the people what happened with the Airbnb?
Oh, we got a good deal.
Yeah, you called the person and you got the money off because you paid cash. And yeah, I know what's going on. All right, you can't.
Well, we knew a friend who knows the Airbnb owner,
You
so
knew
it
a
worked out.
friend. You knew a friend who knows a guy who. Yeah, and you got it for cheaper. All right. All
Correct.
right. All right. Look, being frugal is a good thing, Michael. Don't fight it. Embrace your frugality. I think that's a word. All right. So
Frugalicious.
we're going head to head. So first things first, I think what we should say is the two teams that we're fading and why we're fading them. So Michael, why don't you start with the two teams that you're fading?
Look, I know this is probably chalk, this first team. I don't care. There is a 0% chance that I roster a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Can I just say
So
something, Michael, before you do that? Before you get into
sure.
when we were figuring out like how we were going to approach this episode, because we have a group chat and we figure out, the episodes in advance. We don't just come over here and wing it, obviously. So we figured out the episodes in advance. Michael, originally we were thinking about possibly doing a combo team. And literally the first thing Michael said was like, I'm fading the Steelers. I don't want to hear it. That's a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
So that's how strongly Michael feels about it. That's the first thing he said. He didn't say we need the league MVP Lamar Jackson at quarterback. No, he said fade the Steelers.
Correct. Fading the Steelers because look, like I said, you need to fade two teams that you don't think are going to put up monster performances. The second team was a lot harder to choose than this first team. The Steelers, it's going to be a bad weather day too. Playing in Buffalo, it's supposed to be like freezing cold, some wind, and the Bills are just way better than the Steelers in general. I think the Steelers even making the playoffs is just such a letdown for football fans. I think it's going to be a gross game where they don't perform well. They don't have TJ Watt for the game. Like, what do people expect for the Steelers picking their defense? I know Josh Allen turns the ball over every now and then, but they don't have TJ Watt and they have Mitchell Trubisky, or not Mitchell Trubisky, Mason Rudolph at quarterback. Like, I'm not buying this Mason Rudolph resurgence. He didn't even have that good of a week 18 game. Like,
Why
he's
not?
Mason Rudolph because he's Mason Rudolph, Tim. I think it's very silly. Like,
God.
if you go with a one-off of like a George Pickens, a Deontay Johnson, a Najee Harris, that means you're missing out on one-off players on the teams you would be fading. Like if you're fading the Texans, you're missing out on a Nico Collins or something. If you're fading the Rams, you're missing out on a Kyron Williams or a Cooper Kupp. Like there's just no shot in picking a Pittsburgh Steeler.
I gotta tell you, this has been me and Michael for years. But if you say Rudolph one more time, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. The L is silent, Michael. You don't say Rudolph.
Dolph.
It's a Rudolph. All right, Rudolph. Anyway, all right. So you're fading the Steelers. Who's your second team? I'm also fading the Steelers. Just so I want to put that out there for all the reasons Michael said. I'm not going to waste your time repeating Michael. I think also, while I am a little more into the Mason Rudolph, comeback tour, I'm also not buying the Steelers as a real contender. I think Mike Tomlin pulled off one of his coaching miracles by doing that. It would be interesting to see if Mike Tomlin was one of those guys too. Like if the Steelers didn't make the playoffs, if Mike Tomlin would have been one of those guys that was like one of those guys who surprisingly we have an amicable parting of ways from the team kind of situation. But he's coaching this week. I think Mike Tomlin, that was just some Mike Tomlin magic. So who's the second team you're fading, Michael?
Yeah, this one was a lot tougher, but this is the team that I'm most confident is not going to advance. So it's the Green Bay Packers. If I were to choose the Packers, these are probably the most chalky. But I actually listened to a podcast earlier today.
Whoa. Okay, Michael.
Yeah, I don't listen to podcasts often. I went into the office today, so I had some time. I listened to a podcast Eric Balkman does, who also works at the FFPC for RotoViz, the High Stakes Lowdown, where he interviewed the two of the guys who teamed up and won the FFPC Playoff Challenge last year. Oh, cool. And they were talking about like you don't need to fade the chalk. Like people go way too hard trying to fade the chalk. You want the players who are going to score the most points. You just have to be smart with your picks and kind of fortuitous with a little lucky as well. and you just have to be able to make the right calls on a couple guys here and there that are toss-ups. But otherwise, you don't need to completely fade the chalk to win. And in this instance, I'm not completely. I am following the chalk here, and I'm choosing the Steelers and Packers. I'm a little scared not choosing Jaden Reed. Honestly, I think he could have a one-off game. The thing with this is like the say the Detroit Lions lose to the Rams and you have Amon-Ra St. Brown in your lineup, and the Packers lose to the Cowboys and you don't have Jaden Reed in your lineup, and Jaden Reed scores 28 and Amon-Ra scores 15. If someone faded the Lions and doesn't have Amon-Ra on their lineup and chose Jaden Reed, that gives them an advantage, even though Amon-Ra was the more chalky pick. So these are the things that you have to like think about when you go into when you're choosing your lineups. I just think the Lions have a good chance to. I think it's a toss-up that game against the Rams. We'll get into that later, but yeah, the Packers are the team I'm most likely to me is going to lose alongside the Steelers, so I'm fading the Packers as well.
Interesting, Michael. So far, me and you are on the same page. I also that Lions Rams game is one that I'm looking at as a definite upset kind of potential. I think I'm fading the Packers too, and you're fading the 2-7 seeds. I mean, on the one hand, you got the Steelers. I think the Steelers actually have a better chance to win than the Packers. I think I know the Cowboys have a history of blowing it, but they never blow it in the first round, and the Dallas Cowboys are playing at home. They are undefeated at home so far this year. I just don't see the Packers are a project. And, shout out to them who Jordan Love really came on the end of the year, and he looks like the real deal. Like, he even looks kind of like Aaron Rodgers when he throws. I don't know if you noticed that. Like, he kind of looks like Aaron Rodgers. He has kind of like the same mannerisms as Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, the Packers doing it right over and over and over again. Jordan Love looks like a franchise quarterback. So I think the Packers have a bright future, but I just don't see a scenario where the Cowboys lose to the Packers in the first round, especially at home.
Yeah. We have Jason's lineup here as well. Jason's going super contrarian. He signed his lineup, and I was like, bro, this is gross. You don't need to go this contrarian, but he wanted to roll with it. He's fading the Miami Dolphins against the Chiefs, and he's fading the Detroit Lions against the Rams.
So I will say this: the Lions game. We'll get into the Lions game. I think it could be a situation where it's like, because the Rams' one weakness is their defense. Like, if we go to the Fantasy Football by Broto app and we look at their fantasy finishes. Where are you, Detroit Lions? We look at their fantasy finishes. They were the fourth best matchup for QBs, the seventh best matchup for tight ends, the sixth best matchup for wide receivers. They were the 23rd best matchup for running backs, but you got to remember they started the year off so strong against running backs that moved up 7 spots from their members. So they're getting eaten up, the Lions, on defense. But that's not who I was even looking for. I just completely changed the subject. I was actually supposed to be talking about the Los Angeles Rams and their terrible defense. They also have a terrible defense. They were the worst defense against tight ends. They were the 7th matchup against QBs, middle of the pack against running back and wide receivers, but they just got a lot of no names on that team. But there's a world where the Rams win this game, and I think it's a realistic possibility. But I do think that these 2-7 seeds they're just a little out of their range. I get where the NFL is coming from, but I liked it better when the top 2 seeds got buys. And there was only 6 playoff teams in each division. I get where it is, but I just don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Green Bay Packers, they're good teams and they could be better next year, but I just don't think they have what it takes this year. And that's how I felt about the 7 seeds. The 7 seeds really haven't had a chance since they changed this playoff format. But let's get into the first position. So both of us fading the Steelers and the Packers. So with that being said, Michael, who's your quarterback?
My quarterback is a QB for a team that is playing week 1.
Okay. I know who you're going with. Can I guess?
Yeah, you probably know. Go ahead.
Josh Allen?
It's Josh Allen. I think the AFC is bad. Like, I don't think any team really stands out in the AFC. I don't really trust. Whoops.
What the hell was
that? We have a Dyson vacuum, and I accidentally kicked it and knocked it over. Sorry, but All right. Well, as I was saying, yeah, I don't trust Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, if I'm being honest. Not to say I don't trust the Ravens. He just hasn't really done it in the playoffs yet. I just think the Bills have they get the Pittsburgh Steelers and then they get either the Chiefs, Cleveland, or Houston. Um, the Chiefs aren't what they used to be. Cleveland, Houston, I think the Bills are better than. And then they'd get the Baltimore Ravens if the Ravens win their first game. So they're getting at least to the AFC Conference Championship, in my opinion, the Bills. Um, and if they make it to the Super Bowl, having Josh Allen is just such a boon because he's so clearly the best player on that team over the second half. Like, yeah, James Cook had some big games. Stephon Diggs had way too many down games. Dalton Kincaid had a nice finish of the season. He could be a contrarian pick here as well. But his rushing potential, his rushing touchdowns, Josh Allen is just that he's the number one QB in fantasy. So he's my QB here.
He was in major consideration for me. I was between him and the guy I chose. At the end of the day, I chose this guy because I believe that they're going to come out of the AFC. I know Michael's not as confident in this team as I am, but I think that the Ravens are the real deal. This is one of the best Ravens teams that I've seen, and particularly the Ravens defense. Their addition of Raekwon Smith last year was just a work of art, masterpiece. Kyle Hamilton is an absolute stud. Great draft pick. You knew it was going to be. And that whole defense has really stepped up this year. And I think when you have a defense like that, and then you have the guy who's the front runner for MVP at quarterback, I'm going to take the chance that they're going to be coming out of the AFC. And I think that's where my predictions lie. I think when you
Lamar Jackson is the highest projected quarterback at the moment.
Okay, so I'm not the only one thinking this way. Michael got the inside track. But the thing about the Ravens that is scary is that they kind of have a history of blowing it. But with that being said, this is the best Baltimore team we've had. And I will say this, there's so much parity in the league this year. I think more parity than we've seen in a lot of years before. But the thing is, when there's so much parity in the league, usually that means the top teams are the top teams. Do you know what I mean? Like when everyone's kind of grouped together and everyone can beat everybody, the people that beat everybody the most are usually the best teams. So I think Baltimore, like my Super Bowl pick, and this is super chalky, and I'm not afraid to say it. I think it's the Niners over the Ravens. Like I really think that the Niners, we're gonna have a hardball part deux. Let's see if the lights go out this time. But I think that the Niners and the Ravens are going to be going to the Super Bowl. And I mean, obviously that's chalky. Those are both the first round buys, but I just think that this is one of those years where the first round buys are going to come out. Not that I don't like the Bills, but I think the Bills just this year showed that they just aren't special. And I think like they could have been special, but their defense just suffered way too many injuries, particularly with Matt Milano. And let's just too many injuries on the defense. The offense is turned into something that's just like unrecognizable. And I have a Bill on this team that might be a stretch. And I think it's when I get to my Bill, I'm gonna talk about it. He's like a contrarian superstar. You don't get a chance to pick a contrarian superstar a lot. So I decided instead of going Josh Allen, I'm gonna go with Lamar Jackson, and I'm gonna take a chance on the contrarian superstar because I like this particular guy better than I like any of the weapons on the Ravens. Because my strategy going into this is different than my other strategies. My strategy going into this was I want to pick guys that can get me 2 games worth of points, even if they get eliminated. So I went with I was like, all right, who's the best player on each team? And I tried to
important. It is pretty important to have a QB play at least like 2-3 games, and more than likely you do need a QB in the Super Bowl. That tends to be what's needed.
This is definitely what's the word I'm looking for? It's risky because I'm giving up a game. So you're giving up a game right off the bat with these bye weeks. So they need to make the Super Bowl in order for me this to be a good pick. So we'll see what happens. Josh Allen, Michael's quarterback. My quarterback is Lamar Jackson. Who's Jason's quarterback, Michael?
Jason's is Dak Prescott, so he has a Dallas run.
Jason won a dynasty championship on the back of Dak Prescott this year in a super flex league. So man, I traded Dak Prescott to him week 7 because I'm a rebuilding squad. But I'm not gonna lie, bro. If you look at my team now, like I do have some talent. If I would have kept Dak Prescott and I had him in CD Lamb stack, I might have been able to make the playoffs. But I've traded so many picks and I needed picks back, and now I have 3 first-round picks in this year. So I was rebuilding. It made sense kind of, but
I hit
definitely
a nice plus 1,800 future on Dak Prescott leading the league in touchdowns.
Nice. All right, Michael, who's your first running back?
My first running back is CMC.
Me too. I think you gotta have CMC.
Yeah, like I said, it's not like you don't have to go completely off chalk. CMC is just too good. Like there's nothing in my mind that's telling me Debo, Brandon Ayuk, or Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's not going to be a big enough difference from another quarterback that you choose compared to Christian McCaffrey being the difference between the running backs. Like if you choose James Cook and Brock Purdy or Josh Allen and CMC, like because that's what you have to do. You can only choose one player per team. If that's how you're thinking about it, I'm taking Josh Allen and CMC every day. Like CMC is just so much better. Plus the running back pool is light. This is not a running back playoff that we have here. So for me, it's CMC.
I mean, again, like my strategy was who can give me 2 games worth of points in one game if they get eliminated, and I think CMC fits that mold. And I like if you were to tell me that CMC would score more points in his one game than James Cook did in 2 games, would you be surprised by that?
No.
So I'm going with CMC as my first running back. Michael, who's your second running? Who's Jason's first running back?
Jason's first running back is Kyron Williams.
Kyron Williams. So did he go with CMC at all?
He did not.
Ooh, okay. I'm wondering who his San Francisco 49er is. I'm guessing it's George Kittle. Reminder that this is a tight end premium
1.5
league.
DPR.
Yeah, so tight ends get an extra half point every time they catch the ball. All right, Michael, who's your second running back here?
My second running back is Kyron Williams. I think the Rams are a sleeper Super Bowl pick. Their offense has just been basically unstoppable with Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp all healthy. I think the Lions got a just terrible draw getting LA in the first round, the first time they're making the playoffs in a while. Going up against Matt Stafford and the Rams, like the Packers would have been a much easier matchup in my opinion. But nonetheless, I think the Rams have a good shot to defeat the Lions, and I also think they have a good shot to keep winning. Like I think they are a dark horse Super Bowl team. I think Matt Stafford's an interesting contrarian quarterback pick because if he makes it there, he's going to be putting up a lot of points. So that's something to consider if you're entering multiple leagues. Obviously, if you're doing a one-off, you kind of just have to do with what you think is going to happen. If you have 5 teams, 10 teams, 15 teams, 20 teams, you could tinker here and there, things that, different scenarios in your head. But for me, I'm going Kyron Williams just because he's been so damn good. I think him and CMC are far above the rest in terms of running back value in this playoff challenge. So I'm rolling with Kyron Williams.
It's interesting because this is a team with Cooper Kupp. This is a team with Puka Nacua. But I also went Kyron Williams. He's technically in my flex, but I'm just for continuity, I'm going to put him in my second running back spot. Yeah, for all the reasons Michael said, I'm going with Kyron Williams here. I just think that, again, not to repeat myself, but I'm going to. Kyron Williams is going to get work. He's going to touch the ball 15 to 20 times in that game, no doubt about it. Even if it's a blowout, he's still gonna touch the ball. So for me, Kyron Williams is the pick here. But it's interesting because, like I said, this is a high-powered offense. Matt Stafford is someone you can go with. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. It's hard to just pick one of these guys. So, but we all went with Kyron Williams on this team. So that is so far. That is our quarterbacks and our running backs. So let's get into those receivers. Just a reminder: 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 4 flex, 1 kicker, 1 defense. Michael, who's your second wide receiver? Your first wide receiver.
Firstly, Jason's second running back was Isaiah Pacheco. So
I thought he wanted Kyron Williams.
Second running back. He had Kyrie Williams and
That
Isaiah
was his first.
Pacheco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I almost went Isaiah Pacheco, but then I pivoted a little bit because I went with a little interesting strategy. We'll talk about that a little later.
All right.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, my first wide receiver is CD Lamb. Another chalky pick. I don't care. He's just so much better than everyone else on the Cowboys. There's no shot. I think Tony Pollard's outscoring him. Brandon Cooks, get out of here. My only concern would be Dak Prescott having a huge playoff run, making it to the Super Bowl. But even then, he's going to be throwing at CD Lamb. CD Lamb has been the best wide receiver in the league over the last 8 weeks or so. So for me, it was a fairly easy pick of CD Lamb here. Even if they lose to the Packers week 1, which would not be ideal for me, I'm fading the Packers. I do think CD Lamb will put up a monster game. And if they do win, I'd be excited to have CD Lamb in their matchup against, maybe the Rams, Philly, Tampa, one of those three. None of those defenses are scary by any means for a wide receiver.
I don't like that we're sharing so many picks, but my first wide receiver is also CeeDee Lamb. I had CeeDee Lamb on my home team. It was phenomenal. I loved having CeeDee Lamb on my team. I had him on a dynasty team. I love having him on a dynasty team. Actually, I'm thinking about selling high on him and getting 5 first-round picks or something from him from someone who doesn't know better. I could see the Dyson vacuum in the back. I could see Katarina moving it around there.
Tim sees the Dyson vacuum.
So
I can see Katarina moving it around back there.
All right. What up, Katarina? Say hi to the people.
She left.
All right. So CeeDee Lamb is also my pick. So Michael, who's your second wide receiver?
Firstly, Jason's first wide receiver is Zay Flowers.
Jason really going contrarian.
I know, man. I told him he's an idiot, but
I mean it's not the worst pick. Zay Flowers had an excellent.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything, but we'll get to it. My second wide receiver is Amon-Ra. St. Brown.
Me too, bro. We gotta stop.
It's fine that we go semi chalky here. Look, if Detroit wins, it's gonna be a lot to do with Amon-Ra, especially with Sam Laporta out. If they don't win, I do think he has a big enough game where his one and done is okay. Jason faded I
agree.
Jason faded the Lions. I don't see why you would do that when you could fade the Steelers, for example, or the Packers. But again, actually, Jason went with Jaden Reed. That's his wide receiver. So he went Jaden Reed over Amon-Ra. I said that earlier as an example, not knowing that Jason did exactly that. But yeah, Amon-Ra's just been too good, especially in PPR. And Jared Goff's a much better home quarterback. He's going to play at home week 1. Amon-Ra's going to play. Gonna put up points no matter what. So I'm rolling with Amon-Ra.
Yeah, the Rams are a defense that Amon-Ra can take advantage of, and again, he's one of those guys that can put up 2 games worth of points in one game. I agree with you, Michael. One of the reasons why I faded the Packers and I faded the Steelers is not only because I think those teams are going to lose, but also because the fantasy outcomes on those teams are not as great. I would have also faded the Buccaneers or the Texans. Those are teams that I just don't think have the capability of scoring as many points as some of these other teams do. I kind of pseudo faded the Texans and Bucks. We'll talk about that later. But with that being said, let's go to your first tight end, Mike. Your tight end. Who's your tight end?
Well, hold on. Jason's second wide receiver is
I keep forgetting Samuel. Jason. Sorry, special guest.
So we both went CMC. Jason went Deebo Samuel from San Fran. Yeah. My tight end is
that's Jason face.
My tight end is Dallas Goedert.
Ooh, okay, interesting.
I went with Josh Allen at QB. The Eagles are on a down spin, spiraling, but I don't think they're going to lose to the Buccaneers. AJ Brown is dealing with an injury. He hasn't practiced yet. Even if he does play, he's been putting up down performances of late. Devontae Smith has basically been worse than Dallas Goedert all season when Dallas Goedert is healthy. This is tight end premium. Dallas Goedert had a good week 16 and 17 upon his return from injury. So this is, I guess, my first semi-contrarian pick. Not going with Hurts or AJ Brown or Devontae Smith. I'm going to go with Dallas Goedert here. Hopefully he has a big game against Tampa Bay. I expect them to lose next week after that to San Fran or Dallas if that ends up being the game for them. So, yeah.
My pick here at tight end is David Njoku. I mean, the reason why David Njoku is a tight end here is simple. I think because they're going to throw it to him over and over and over again. The Texans were the fourth best matchup in terms of points over average. Now, this is why you need points over average. Like, again, like I don't want to keep hounding this, but if you look at the overall rankings of points giving up to tight end, the Texans don't give up that many points to the tight end, but they do give up 29% points over average to the tight end, and that's the fourth best matchup in the league. And David Njoku has been absolutely getting peppered with the ball, particularly since Joe Flacco took over. Since week 10, he's only finished outside of the top 8 tight ends one time. That was in week 13 at LA. In his last 4 games, he finished tight end 2, tight end 2, tight end 4, tight end 3. A lot of people rode David Njoku to some fantasy championships this year, and I think that's going to continue, especially in a good matchup here. Joe Flacco is going to slang that thing, and he loves slinging it to his very athletic tight end out of Miami, David Njoku. On top of that, it's a 1.5 super flex, so I want as many targets as humanly possible. With Joe Flacco, he's had 8 targets, 14 targets, 9 targets, and 8 targets. Give me all of that. That's all together 31 receptions. That's an average of, what is that, 9 receptions over 4 games? No. What is that?
You said 30.
31 divided by 4.
Slightly under 8, 7.75.
I love that. Give me all that. Over 100 yards in 2 of those games. One of the games that he has 4 touchdowns over those 4 games. Only 1 game under 91 yards in those 4 games, and he scored a touchdown in that game. So I think that like he's as guaranteed as you can get at the tight end position. He's the new Travis Kelce at the moment, so I'm going with him. And I know I'm letting you go first, Michael, and we're gonna get to Jason's in a second, but I'm playing a little bit of a strategy game here, and I'm doubling up tight end. I am going with Travis Kelce as well as one of my flex players. I just think that if the Chiefs are going to win, they're going to win on the back of Travis Kelce, even though he had a weaker regular season this year. I do think there is something to the fact that like he's a little older and maybe he took us a couple plays off and they kind of had an easy division where no one ever really got that close. I think the Broncos at one point were 1 game out, but they were never really a contender. The Chargers were never really contenders. The Raiders were never really contenders. So that's a team who kind of eased to the finish. And it's just, I know what this team has. I know what Andy Reid has. I know what Pat Mahomes has. I know what Travis Kelce has. And yes, they're not the same team of old, but this is a team who's been there, done that. And you're going to hear me like one of the reasons why I'm fading the Texans. I'm ending up taking the Texans defense. I'll talk about that. But one of the reasons why I'm pseudo fading the Texans is because of the rookie quarterback and the lack of experience. Because there's one thing that we always forget is how much playoff experience actually matters. So I think that this is the team with the playoff experience, the champs, the 2-time champs, the defending champs, and I'm going to take Travis Kelce because he's another one where I think this is a rare superstar contrarian pick. I don't think that Travis Kelce is going to be picked a lot because of the weak season that he had. So give me all that Travis Kelce. I'm doubling up on tight end in my first flex. Who's Jason's flex, Michael?
Jason's tight end is
Tight end.
Dalton Schultz.
Okay.
Houston. My first flex is, since you brought up Kansas City, I'll go Kansas City. Rashee Rice. I went more contrarian in KC. Not Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah, not Isaiah Pacheco or Travis Kelce. Look, Rashee Rice was the best player on that team for fantasy over the second half of the year. He outscored Travis Kelce almost every game. I think people are buying into the, it's Travis Kelce and it's playoff time narrative a little too much.
Oh, so thank you for just like saying what I said, but in that voice. Appreciate it, Michael.
Yeah, anytime. And Rashee Rice is going to be less rostered as well. I think Casey's going to beat Miami. I have a soft fade on Miami, as you'll see coming up. So yeah, I think Rashee Rice, if they're going to have to, it's going to be on Patrick Mahomes for them to win. And Rashee Rice has been the number 1 target over the second half of the year. I think that continues.
I will mention this: the Dolphins' the 8th best matchup according to True matchup ranking for wide receivers. Also, the 8th best matchup for tight ends, 19% over average, and that has gotten better by 5 spots. over the last 3 games. So they've been getting destroyed by the tight end over the last 3 games. Let's go into the first flex. I already mentioned that I have Travis Kelce in that first flex. Michael, how you feeling about it?
Well, my first flex is Rashee Rice. Jason's first flex is George Pickens. Yuck. He picked a Steeler. I have nothing to say about that.
Looks like Jason's going to be buying one of us sushi.
Yep.
What if he wins?
He texted me on the side. I guess I'm buying you guys sushi.
Yeah, I mean, is that how you want to do? The loser buys the other 2 people sushi? I think we should change the rules to that now that I see Jason.
No, it's second and third place pay for first place's sushi.
I don't know what you're talking about, Michael.
Yeah, you're right. Jason's buying a sushi.
Go ahead.
My second flex is Amari Cooper. Look, Amari Cooper. I know
I like
David
it. I like
Njoku. David Njoku is expected to be the highest owned Cleveland player for good reason. As Tim mentioned, he chose Njoku, and I don't blame him for it. But Amari Cooper just put up 250 yards against Houston last time they played. And if Cleveland beats Houston, I do think it's going to be because of Amari Cooper, not because of Njoku. He's shown a real connection with Joe Flacco. The Texans secondary is solid, but we saw what Amari Cooper did to them just 2 weeks ago. He's been very good with Joe Flacco, so I'm rolling with Coop.
I like it. All right, Mike. Who is your second flex?
Coop is my second flex, man.
I meant who's Jason's second flex? My bad.
Jason's second flex is Jaden Reed.
Jaden Reed. Okay, so we went over Jaden Reed a little bit. My second flex here is Raheem Mostert. I'm riding with Raheem Mostert from the Dolphins because it's basically a very simple equation. Who's a person who's going to get enough work where he kind of can get 2 games worth of work in the same game? And I think Raheem Mostert is that guy. He's been killing it throughout the whole season. Now, Devin Achane has stepped up in the last game. And that does make me a little nervous, but I think that makes it a little less chalky. And I think I'll take the chance that Raheem Mostert comes back strong and plays well in this game, even if they lose. So I'm going with Raheem Mostert here because what else can you say? He scored 20 touchdowns.
Wow, so Tyreek Hill is projected to be one of the highest owned players in this tournament. You went Mostert. I soft faded the Dolphins, so I'll just say it. I'll be choosing Jason Sanders. I'll get to it at that time. Excuse me. And Jason just completely faded the Dolphins. So we're going contrarian with the Dolphins here, which is interesting.
All right, let's go to our third flex. This is another one where I went with a contrarian superstar. I'm going Stephon Diggs.
That's who Jason went with as well.
Yeah, I think that Stephon Diggs is not going to be highly rostered in this tournament. And I think that if the Bills are going to make a run, Stephon Diggs is going to have to be part of it, especially because it looks like, what's his name? Gabe Davis is not going to be playing in this game. So that leaves Khalil Shakur and Dalton Kincaid and James Cook and guys that in the playoffs don't have any experience in the playoffs, are very light experience in the playoffs, aren't superstar caliber type guys in the playoffs when it matters. I think that Josh Allen's going to go to his guy, and I think Stephon Diggs has a little resurgence. And so I'm going to go with an opportunity to have a contrarian superstar here in the flex with Stephon Diggs.
All right. My third flex is Nico Collins of the Houston Texans.
I almost went Nico Collins, man.
Yeah, I think too many people are fading the Texans entirely or soft fading the Texans like you did, Tim. I get it. I get the Cleveland defense is great and everything, but the Cleveland defense was also wildly better at home than they were on the road. And Houston is going to be at home. I know CJ Stroud is a rookie quarterback. I know they might say, oh, they're a year early there. But CJ Stroud is not playing like a rookie quarterback. He hasn't all year. Nico Collins just dominated in a must-win game this past week. He's their clear number 1 receiver, especially with Tank Dell out. Robert Woods is injured. Dalton Schultz has not done much since his return from injury. I want a piece of that offense. I'd be shocked if Houston won several games in the playoffs. Actually, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm sure everyone else would be. I think they're I see a little bit of Cincinnati Bengals in them, the Joe Burrow year. I know this as Joe Burrow's sophomore year. They were a different team than the Houston Texans are. The Texans are a worse team overall, I'd say. But I do see some of that in the Texans. So I don't want to completely fade them. So I'm rolling with Nico Collins as a number 1 receiver. putting up big points if they do lose. And if they do win, then I have Nico Collins as a nice little leverage play against others in week 2 against the Bills or the Chiefs or the Ravens.
I almost went Nico Collins. I like that. I like that pick a lot. I like that pick a lot.
Awesome.
Who's
Awesome.
Jason pick?
Stephon Diggs.
All right, and the last flex player. So I reserve the right to change this guy. If he does not end up going, I'm going to pivot over to Dallas Goedert and go with the 3 tight end stack. But for right now, I have AJ Brown just in case he does play. I have no confidence in the Eagles. I think that the Eagles, I don't think that this is a kind of team that's just going to turn it on for no reason. Now they're playing the Buccaneers, which gives me a little more confidence. So I do think they have the ability to win one game, but I'm just not a fan of the Eagles this year. I think their defense is a lot softer than it was last year. I think their lack of rotation depth on the defensive line is really showing so far this year. I think that's one reason why their secondary was exposed. Their secondary was basically the same last year, except they had a great pass rush. So they looked a lot better because they had to cover for a second and a half less. So I'm going to go with AJ Brown here against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that's susceptible through the air. And I reserve the right to change that to Dallas Goedert or maybe DeAndre Swift. Let's say Dallas Goedert. I want to stack those tight ends. So I'm going to go Dallas Goedert if AJ Brown doesn't play. But I mean, the reasons why you pick AJ Brown are obvious.
Yeah. Jason's final flex is David Njoku. Similar reasons to you, I suppose. Or I assume. My final flex is Zay Flowers. I didn't choose Lamar Jackson. I was very close to choosing Isaiah Likely, but look,
Mark Andrews might be back.
Yeah, there's a chance Mark Andrews returns. He's not expected to per se their first game, but if he comes back the conference championship or if he comes back the Super Bowl where points are double, if like there's some people who max out these contests 150 entries, I'm sure those guys will throw a Mark Andrews in their lineup. If you're doing a 1-off 2, 3, 4, 5 leagues, it's just not worth the risk. In general, I don't think it's worth the risk risking the zeros. You can't really bounce back from zeros in this contest. So that scared me off of Isaiah Like a little bit. And Zay Flowers has just been awesome since the Mark Andrews injury. So I'm rolling with Zay Flowers as my final flex. And Jason's final flex, as I mentioned, was David Njoku. So now we get to the kickers and defense, baby.
Yeah, these are soft fades, like Michael said. These are teams that we expect to be eliminated in the first round and or expect not to get big performances from. I'm going Chase McLaughlin for my kicker, and then I'm going with the Texans defense as my defense. The reason why I'm going with the Texans defense, I think, is because they're playing the Browns, and Joe Flacco throws a pick or two every game, so I'm going with the highest possibility to return a kick. I know the Texans defense is on shambles right now. Will Anderson is questionable to play. They're missing half their offensive line. With all that being said, I still think they have a high opportunity to get a pick six, so that's why I'm going with the Texans defense on the soft fade. It was between them and the Bucs defense, and the Bucs defenses don't offer anything. So I went with Chase McLaughlin and which is the Bucs kicker, if you don't know, and then the defense of the Texans. Michael, who's your kicker in D?
Real quick, this motherfucker Jason chose Chase McLaughlin and Eagles defense against each other, so he's having a kicker or defense move on no matter what. I don't know what he was doing when he made this line. Yeah. Anywho, my kicker is Jason.
I've been waking up at 5:15 a.m. to wake up with Jason. He's just tired.
Yeah, I suppose. Jason Sanders is my kicker. Like I said, I'm soft fading Miami. I don't think they're going to beat KC. I'm going contrarian route and fading Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert, Jalen Waddle and company. But I do think they're going to be kicking field goals. So Jason Sanders, 3-4 field goals, and that's all you really need. And then my defense, I got Tampa Bay against Philly. The Philly offense has been struggling of late. Jalen Hurts is dealing with an injury. AJ Brown is dealing with an injury. I know the Tampa Bay defense isn't anything to write home about, but all you need is a player to where something goes really right for them or really wrong for the Eagles offense, which has been happening fairly often these days. So I went with the Tampa Bay defense.
What about?
Shall we recap our squads?
Sure, let's do it. Let's go with Jason first and his
Yeah,
wax.
Jason's bum ass team. Yeah. Dak Prescott, Kyron Williams, Isaiah Pacheco, Zay Flowers, Debo Samuel, Dalton Schultz, George Pickens, Jaden Reed, Stephon Diggs, David Njoku, Chase McLaughlin, and Eagles defense.
I'm going
I
with
never want to repeat those words again.
Lamar Jackson at quarterback. My two running backs are CMC and Raheem Mostert. My wide receivers, CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown. At tight end, David Njoku. In my flex, Travis Kelce, Kyron Williams, Stephon Diggs, and either A.J. Brown or Dallas Goedert if A.J. Brown doesn't play. My kicker is Chase McLaughlin. My defense is the Texans, and I am fading the Steelers and the Packers.
All right. And for me, Josh Allen at QB, CMC at running back, Kyron Williams at running back, CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver, Amon-Ra at wide receiver, Dallas Goedert at tight end. I went with a single tight end here. And then I got in the 4 flexes, Rashee Rice, Amari Cooper, Nico Collins, and Zay Flowers with Jason Sanders at kicker and Tampa Bay defense.
You kind of went slightly contrarian with your flex plays.
Yeah, I got the chalkiest that I think are chalkiest for a reason in guys like CMC, CD, and Amon-Ra. And then I went with guys where you build a story in your head. You look at the matchups of the week and matchups in future weeks and what teams are likely to make it far and such. And that's what I came up with.
All right, Michael, that is it. This is the free preview episode. Don't forget to join patreon.com. Michael, hit that banner. Don't forget to join patreon.com/Broto Fantasy, youtube.com/Broto Fantasy if you want to see the lovely banner and our lovely faces. You could tell it's the winter time because I am light as hell, man. I've lost all my beautiful Mediterranean oliveness in my
Word,
skin.
maybe I could get a little bit of a tan when I'm in Miami.
Go get a tan, bro. Like all of the Patrop skin color is just so olivey Mediterranean. Like I love our Mediterranean hue. I love like how we get tan in the summer. You know what I mean? Like I just love having that hue, and I just like I hate being this light in the wintertime. But no offense to anyone that is this light. You're all beautiful, or dark. You're all anyone's. I just love my complexion. That's all I'm saying. Nothing
Wrap
against
it up,
other
shall we?
nothing against other complexions. Michael, what did you eat for dinner tonight, bro?
You're a funny guy. Chicken with quinoa and veggies.
Oh, so you went healthy. I've
Like I said, I've been back on the grind.
Yeah, I've been eating super healthy as well. I've been eating super healthy, but tonight we had we put a little bit of unhealth in the dish. What my wife does is she makes this one sheeter, right? And she puts boneless, skinless chicken thighs.
I love those.
Some bacon, apples, Brussels sprouts, and sweet potatoes. And she puts that all in one pan and cooks it together. And I swear to God, Michael, this thing tastes like a chicken bake from Costco. Do you remember chicken bakes?
Yeah, I assume it tastes better than that.
Why? Chicken bakes were amazing.
Chicken bakes were decent.
Bro, I used to love chicken bakes.
Johnny found them horrific. Remember that?
I remember I used to eat all his. My mom and dad used to get them, and I used to eat his. And then I used to eat his lean pockets as well. But yeah.
Lean pockets. The chicken, cheese, and broccoli lean pockets. Oh, yeah.
Chicken parm. I used to always trade my chicken and cheese for your meatball parm. Always.
Good times.
Or the Philly cheesesteak. That one was
the Philly cheesesteak. That was. You had to be in the mood for it.
Man, how many lean pockets did we eat? That's probably terrible for us. But anyway, yeah, that's all we got. Remember, patreon.com/Broto Fantasy. If you're not already contributing, please contribute. The off season is coming, but before that, we got a playoff preview, so we'll be back to you next week. Don't forget that. Always available.
Real quick, download the app and click the FFPC button. If you're a new user, you'll get $5 off your entry.
Which is it's good, man. It's good. It's right at the bottom. You really can't.
It's the banner that says FFPC on it.
All the way in the bottom corner. So that's where it's at. Yeah, Michael, always a pleasure, brother. With that being said, we are out of here. Like
Later.
Bill Belichick. Peace.